Sunil, over to you. Break down the key aspects of this judgment. It is a significant judgment that's coming in weeks away from the elections.
That's right. It's a significant judgment, and it has been asked and has asked State Bank of India, which was the nodal agency, to immediately stop the electoral bond scheme. Immediately disclose all the names, give it to the Election Commission, and it should be now published by the 31st of March. That is the clear indication. So ahead of 2024, the thousands of crores that were collected will now be an open book for everybody to scrutinize and see in terms of who and how did they fund, whether there has been a quid pro quo. That is a clear process that is now going to take place in the electoral bond scheme. They have found it violative of the right to information, on the Companies Act, on the Income Tax Act, on various grounds. They have found it fundamentally. It's a unanimous judgment. And of course, the other aspect is that there could be, the conclusions are the same as Justice Sanjeev Khanna, who gave a differing in terms of reasoning, but has agreed with the other judges, fellow judges, on the conclusion. So the electoral bond scheme, which came up as a money bill in the 2017, which is also subject to now a constitutional question about money bills. Can you introduce it in the Lok Sabha, and which are not necessarily money bills, that is the Aadhaar Act, which will also be subject to a constitutional court at a later stage. But be that as it may, today this ensures what was really happening. The ruling party was getting nearly 95% of the electoral bonds. That is now not going to happen. They have found it as a violative of and unconstitutional, and it's on that basis now that they will have to play and go forward on this very important aspect. So it's a big blow for the government of the day in terms of holding it unconstitutional. The Chief Justice of India, in his judgment, majority judgment, gave that the government and the union wasn't able to give and reason out what exactly is why the scheme had come about, and why it followed the principles of whether it was really anonymous or not. And the last aspect, which I want to point out, as Prashant Bhushan and others said in the court, that this will have far-reaching implications, because a free and fair election is extremely critical, because money power plays a critical role. Now it is not going to be towards any particular party. It's going to be open. This is something that opposition parties had opposed. They were the petitioners in this case, and they had opposed this.
Yes, it was an opposition versus government fight. It was always pitted that way. The petitioners had even argued that this leads to undue advantage to the ruling government of the day, which is why the government was so for the electoral bond scheme. But the politics of it aside, Sunil, just for a moment, for the benefit of our viewers, can you break down what this means? What were the electoral bonds? Now we can use them in the past tense. How did they guarantee opacity in the political funding process? And how does this verdict, many would tout it as historic, in fact lead to more transparency in political funding? Break down the details of this case for the benefit of our viewers, please.
So I'll put it very simply, Rishika. If you wanted to, give a particular party, say 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees, you were permitted to do so. All you had to do was go to the State Bank of India and buy an electoral bond and give it to the political party. You would have been anonymous. Only the State Bank of India would know. What was argued was that the State Bank of India, even though it is technically anonymous, the ruling party knows who has bought it, because it is in designated State Bank of India branches across the country, and they were able to issue the electoral bond. So you can easily find out the source of it. That 1,000 rupees, if you had given, say, to A particular party or B party or C party, that party would take it and then encash it to use it as and file it in their returns and go ahead with the entire process. They didn't need to, state it. There was a certain amount of opacity with that, but then there was a 3-judge bench which said, no, you have to disclose it to the Election Commission. Now, today, what the Supreme Court has said, those thousands of crores that you have collected in the last few years must now be disclosed by the State Bank of India to the Election Commission, and the Election Commission by the 31st of March has to publish this entire process. And I must add here that the Election Commission itself, at its, not the present team, the earlier team, had consistently been opposed to the electoral bond scheme. So even the empire in this stage was not extremely convinced with the government scheme in terms of bringing what was called transparency and accountability. Now that, as you said, it's in the past tense, it's unconstitutional. The State Bank of India has been asked immediately to stop the entire scheme and go ahead and disclose the names of all those people who have given thousands of crores to all political parties, be it A particular party or B particular party. Everybody will now be disclosed in the account of transparency. It will be timed along with Indian elections. By then, it will be just a few days ahead of the first phase of voting. There is expected to be a 7th phase or 6th phase, whichever the Election Commission decides, when that announcement is made by the first week of March, if not earlier. And then, of course, it starts from April, which will carry on till May, over a 7 phase process over 1.5 months.
Sunil, if I understand you correctly, and again, this is a point of clarification, not just has the electoral bond scheme been struck down as unconstitutional, which means that the scheme is to be stopped immediately, all past political funding that has been received by political parties also now needs to be brought out in the public domain. So donors who have previously anonymously donated towards political parties, their contributions will also be made public. Is that correct?
That's right. It will be made public in the interest of a free and fair election in terms of transparency and accountability, because it was violative of the RTI. Now it will be published by the Election Commission once the State Bank of India will give those details to the Election Commission. So that will be, the Election Commission will be the nodal agency to publish it by the 31st of March 2024.